Hey everyone, welcome to another Game of Thrones Tower of Babel breakdown. As always, I'm Julian Meush. I'm joined by Daniel D'Souza.
Hey.
And we're here to talk about Season 2, Episode 8, The Prince of Winterfell in a rewatch capacity, which means we're going to be spoiling everything through the end of Season 7, the beginning of Season 8, including this week, the trailer for Season 8. So if you do want to go into Season 8 completely unspoiled, at least skip past the intro bit here, I don't know, the first couple minutes, and then and listen to the Season 2 stuff. But we will be talking about the Season 8 trailer in this episode as well as some other couple of news bits, including episode length, which have been revealed for the final season, which should be interesting. But before we get into that, I'd like to mention to people to follow us on Twitter at Tower Babblecast, facebook.com/TowerBabblecast as well. Head over to our website, towerofbabel.ca, towerbabel.podcast.com. Either one of those will take you to the same place. And look for all the work we do, including, by the time this show is posted tomorrow on Tuesday, the day after that, on Wednesday, we'll have another new show posted, but it won't be Game of Thrones related. It's going to be another classic ToB episode 131. We cover a lot of news, like so many stories. Daniel's just surprised left and right by all the news that had come up like the last month, including Ben Affleck leaving as Batman, the Lord of the Rings series news about when it was set. Spoilers, it's the Second Age. What else happened? Daniel, help me out here. There's so many stories.
Well, it's go listen to the episode. I don't even remember. Like, so right now I'm basically just strictly Game of Thrones. I don't really pay attention to any other news.
He's got tunnel vision.
I was surprised by a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Wait, what? So yeah, go check that out. We're a big fan of that, and that's obviously completely free. If you are looking for some bonus content from us, and you want to help support the show, we got something for you. Head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/TowerBabblecast. Again, that's BABBLE. And for as little as $5 a month, I like to use the example, one coffee, just one Starbucks coffee will get you bonus content from us and will, again, help support the show. It's been really awesome. In fact, I was just thinking about this. The website dues come up in another month and a half. So that makes a big difference towards putting the show together and getting it on the internet, because we can sit here and record, but if there's nowhere to post it to, you'll never hear it, right? I guess I do also want to say that we're going to be testing some new Patreon exclusive live streaming that we're going to be doing. We talked about this in the past, but for all the Patreon subscribers, we're going to be doing live reactions following the Season 8 episodes immediately after the HBO series episodes end on Sunday nights. So if you want to get involved in those, again, obviously subscribe on Patreon. That's the best way. And then check out, follow along with the news either on Twitter, Facebook, or just at the Patreon page itself about where and how you're going to be able to get involved. There's a couple different streaming options. We haven't decided which one we want to use yet, but it will be Patreon exclusive. And we'll be doing some of these final Season 2 episodes probably live as well, just so we can test out some of that technology before Season 8 happens. So again, stay tuned for some news on exactly how to get involved in those. Let's get to some news. Before we do that, we should thank some donors, which is very important. So we got a new Patreon patron this week, Josh Miles at $5 a month. I really appreciate that. Daniel really appreciates that too.
Everybody does, of course.
Everyone does. Everyone appreciates it. Your mom appreciates it. Your dad appreciates it. Everyone does. Your cousins. And then we also had a one-time donation. So I've talked about this in the past as well, that if you don't want to commit to monthly payments, although it is awesome that you would, you have the option to go to our website, towerbabble.ca/donate, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
And you can do a one-time donation to either a couple options. You can do a credit card or PayPal. So whatever you prefer, and that also is a huge help. So John Manelli gave us a $10 donation this week, and we really appreciate it. He also sent us a nice email.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
Responding to my questions about the accounting involved in the
which actually does come up later on in this episode, so we'll probably talk about it a bit then.
I agreed. Okay, so let's get to the news. There's lots to talk about. So Season 8 has been shrouded in mystery for basically 2 years almost. And they've kind of pulled the curtain back a bit, and we now have a new trailer, as well as they've revealed the length of every episode for the season. I think revealing the length is a bit of an interesting move, but we'll get to that. Let's start with the trailer.
Sure.
Not very long, right? But certainly epic. There's certain shots that I think they were holding a lot back, obviously, here, right? I think we can kind of say that those shots at nighttime with a lot of the horses, that's probably that second last episode.
The big battle.
The big battle between the living and the dead, right? We get some really choice lines of dialogue, right? The line from Jaime stands out particularly about how he promised to fight for the living and he intends to keep that promise.
Right.
Really good line. Arya sprinting away from something at Winterfell or to something. It's not clear.
It seems more likely that it's away. It seems like she's looking back. And
but it's also one of those things where it just could be clever trailer editing, right? Because it starts with like her heavy breathing and then cuts to her running, but she could be running for multiple reasons at the second.
Fair enough.
So, what else? Anything else stand out to you?
Well, I mean, it's I like to try to like break it down in terms of details. So Arya's running around there. That's in the crypts of Winterfell. Later on in that same sequence, you see Varys with a group of other sort of like refugee style, whatever, like people who aren't necessarily fighters huddled there. I think Gilly is there as well.
Yeah.
So that this obviously we knew the characters would be all converging on Winterfell. So Sam and Gilly make it up there at some point. Varys does as well. So they have the fighters up top and people in the crypts hiding from the battle. But now when they announced that full episode would be the longest ever battle sequence in history put to film or television, and that they said it would be multiple genres, that's what's interesting to me is that part of the crypts, that's the more that horror stuff that we were talking about.
So do you think that like the former Stark family members from the crypt come back, like are raised from the dead?
As goofy as that sounds, there is some like potential precedent for that.
Yeah.
That could be the reason that the Kings of Winter, that the reason for the Iron Swords are there to keep them in.
Right.
It's obvious. It's very likely that the Night King was a Stark, and that there was much more dealings with the White Walkers before the wall was put up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's possible that Starks have White Walker blood. Winter is coming, being a boast of their family house. Like everybody other house's words, hear me roar. Ours is the fury.
Right.
It's some sort of boast. Winter's coming seems more like foreboding, but maybe initially it was meant to be a boast, right?
Interesting. That's one way of looking at it.
It's all very subjective. Like who knows? But that there are theories surrounding that.
Okay. What else? Obviously, we have shots of Dany and Jon arriving at Winterfell. That's probably episode 1, if I had to guess. Meeting Sansa. We have shots of Arya being in awe of dragons. Right. There's that epic shot of Dany and Jon walking towards the 2 remaining living dragons. By the way, I'm sure you'll be happy to know that Viserion looks much greener.
No, it's Rhaegal.
Rhaegal, right,
dead.
Right. Yeah.
I noticed towards in like season 6 or so, like the dragons all kind of look more.
It's an aging
or less
thing.
alike.
It's an aging thing.
But yeah, they made him a bit more green.
As
that's great.
Yeah, as he gets older, they get more distinct in color. What else? I really love the shot of the army arriving at Winterfell. Oh shit, I'm playing it now. I'm a big fan of that.
Like with Jon and Dany riding beside each other.
No. Well, I think But then you have the whole. It's like 1,000 men marching towards Winterfell. Like you just don't get that perspective very often. It has a lot of weight to it, obviously. What else, Danny?
The other thing that stood out to me, again, in terms of the little details, there was a shot of a boat, the Golden Company, right? That we know that's what that is. That the Golden Company is hired by Cersei, right?
Right.
Coming to Westeros, and somebody distinctly blonde at the head. You can't tell who it is from behind.
Yeah, people are speculating Jaime. It's not Jaime.
It's not Jaime.
They've already revealed that they've cast an actor to play the head of the Golden Company.
Have they revealed the character name that you know of?
I can look it up.
Because it would be very interesting. Obviously, this late in the game, it's much too late, actually. In fact, especially given the length of the episodes, to be announcing new characters and new storylines, right?
I'm guessing this character won't have as big of a role as we think,
right? But the Golden Company is a whole other storyline that's obviously dropped from the show that's still important in the book. So it would be interesting to learn the character's name and see if it connects in some way.
Let me see here.
I highly doubt it's going to be the Griff and young Griff storyline. There's just no room for that at this point.
Mark Rissman, who also just so happens to be blonde, was cast to play the book character Harry Strickland, a commander of the Golden Company.
Homeless Harry Strickland, yeah.
So there you go.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if that's a really big necessarily spoiler. We already knew that they were on the way, right?
I was more like interested in who in the character's name.
Right. Okay. What else happened in this trailer? I'm going through. There's a cool shot of dragons flying through a canyon. What else happens here? A lot of running. There's a shot of obviously Jon and Dany looking about to ride through dragons. That's pretty cool. Is one that you think is the cover image that they decided to use for the trailer and most things is the two of them like that. Everyone just looks very sad.
Or scared.
Mm-hmm. Even Cersei, like that one shot of her sitting on the throne, like she had a little lip quiver in there. Did you notice that?
Yeah, there was a weird shot. It lingers on her, but that almost looks like a smirk. Like she's almost kind of happy. Like
I don't know. It's kind of one of the. It's hard to read. I mean, she's always hard to read, but
it's almost like she is aware that there's a big battle going on, and she's just being stubborn at this point and is choosing not to help.
Right.
But again, we obviously are reading too far into that. There's no way to know based on what we saw.
Shot ends. The trailer ends with looks like a dead horse. That's like horse hooves. I think they could have done it's a little not clear. You're like, what is that supposed to be? I guess it's a White Walker on a dead horse coming towards Winterfell. That's the ominous shot. I don't even know if that shot will even be in the show. You know,
yeah,
might be a trailer shot even.
The dead horse is nothing new. But it's a symbolic of the the White Walkers and the army of the dead.
Well, you know what they should do? They should ask Sam how he survived that one encounter. And use that to their advantage. I don't know. Maybe they're like they can't see a certain color. Like they can use them to camouflage. I don't know. But that would be handy. Anything else you want to say about the trailer? I mean, like I said, they don't reveal very much. It's a lot of shots of people's faces and like reaction shots and a lot of motifs of
right. One of the other things that sticks out is Jaime. This is likely a lot of the really dark and orange scenes are the battle at Winterfell, right?
Yeah.
There's obviously going to need to be fire.
Mm-hmm.
Jaime yelling Brienne, I believe, at that point.
Oh, interesting.
Who knows why? Other than that, though, yeah, it's not. This is what we want out of a trailer, right? It's hype. It's you get these cool shots of
these so many views. I just want to see how many views it has on YouTube right now.
But the thing is, I don't want my trailer to be too revealing, right? I don't want.
I know that's a good trailer won't be, right? Yeah. It gets you excited without giving away. In fact, I don't know. What do you think about this? A trailer that intentionally misleads you, like the Avengers Infinity War trailers,
right?
Is that better or worse?
Well, I mean, surface level, it's worse, but it's become a necessity for some of these properties because things get spoiled and because people are so sensitive to spoilers. It's be much the same with Game of Thrones. This one chose to be very vague, so they didn't have to do anything like that. But like we've already talked about it, how tight-lipped they're being regarding the final episode. Only certain people had access to that set, right? So it's a genuine concern.
42 million.
Yeah,
42 million views. It's a lot of views. It's a lot of views. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to speculate too much now because we've got to save some of that for our bonus episode or season 8 preview episode that we got to record. But I haven't watched a trailer so many times as this trailer. I've never watched a trailer so many times. It's not even close. I watched it 5 times in a row at work.
Right.
Just like full screen. Like I don't even. If someone walked by, I'd be like, "Yeah, it's Game of Thrones." They'd understand. Anyway, we should talk about the episode lengths a little bit. Episode lengths are, let me find them here because I know I posted them on our Facebook page. Here we go. Okay, so episode 1, season 8, episode 1 is 54 minutes. Episode 2 is 58 minutes. Episode 3 is 60 minutes. 4 is 78 minutes. 5 is 80, and 6 is 80.
So, a little disappointing to say the least.
I think also they kind of lied to us a little bit.
Yeah, the hype was that it's gonna be a shorter season, but all the episodes are gonna be longer. The first 3
Are
episodes
shorter than 60 is regular, but
no.
54
It's about 58, I think, regular.
right. Okay,
Oh, maybe not because it's HBO. I think it might be almost exactly 60.
54 is for sure a shorter than normal episode.
Right.
Like arguably one of the shorter episodes ever on the show. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I think 52 might be the slowest.
Around there.
Yeah.
Anyways.
58 is, and 58 and 60 are pretty close together, but also like just standard length episodes. Right. And then you have 78, 80, and 80, right? 78, I think, might be tied for the longest around there. And then 80 and 80 are both the longest, but still.
Which is great. Like, and you know,
it's only an extra 20 minutes per episode.
Right. And you do what you got to do. It's just the promise was that they would all be feature length. And it's also disheartening because they have so much to accomplish within these episodes.
Maybe they don't have as much to accomplish as we think, right?
Well, I don't know. In my mind, it feels like there's a lot of not necessarily loose ends anymore. They've kind of gotten rid of all the storylines that weren't going anywhere or that they chose not to lead anywhere. But it's just.
I want to know what's happening in Dorne. I'll tell you.
well, too bad.
They just forgot that Dorne existed. They just be like, nah. Yeah. You know, again, I wouldn't even be that upset if the first one wasn't less than a full hour. Like you're gonna have people come in to this, you know, been waiting a year and a half for the finales of, like, they're all their own finale, right? The final stretch,
right?
And you're gonna give them not even a full episode. You're not gonna give them even one full episode to start to kick it off.
And if history is any teacher, like we all know, we've been doing these breakdowns for a bit, and every episode 1 is sort of like it's like, remember where this character is. These people need to meet each other.
Right, so it's like a waste of an episode.
Well, not a waste of an episode, but it's like a catch-up episode. Now, again, in this case, the stories are converging, so it won't be as necessary.
Yeah, there's not as much.
But
work
still,
to
like
do.
things like Jon hasn't reunited with Arya yet, right?
I think that's happening episode one.
That's
right?
episode 1, but that's huge, right? That's for both of their characters. That's monumental.
Mm-hmm.
So episode 1, if it's the majority of the episode is just people meeting people.
Does Jon know that Arya's alive?
Well, he must.
Yeah, probably.
Well, no, he may have left before she got back. So like she reunited with Sansa. And
He
Bran.
might have gotten word on the way back. Maybe.
Yeah, because he was busy
Yeah.
fighting and going on a secret mission to get one zombie back.
Yeah, totally worth it. Totally worth it.
But no, and it's going to be great to see that. That's what I mean when I say they have a lot of work to do in terms of that, in terms of Sam meeting them at Winterfell,
Killing
Jaime
lots
coming
of
up to
characters. There's a
Winterfell.
lot of characters to kill. So, you know, maybe it all. Dan, what about this? Maybe it just all ends. It's a happy ending for everyone. No one dies, right?
Well, I mean,
Only the Night King and Jon decide to be best friends.
I think people would revolt. I would revolt.
I don't. Okay, people wouldn't revolt if less people died. I think you think people are like, they want blood. They're out for blood on these characters now.
I think people to a degree have come to expect it.
Okay, I think those are two different things. But again, save some of this for our preview episode. Shall we get into the breakdown?
We shall.
Is there anything else you want to say
about the trailer? No,
just in general.
Yeah, I don't know.
I find that March, the season, is annoying.
The month, right? It's a month.
The month, and it's the spring, the season, are frustrating to me because it feels like winter's coming to an end, but winter really claws on for a lot, like at least all of March before it really starts letting go, and it really bugs me. I don't like getting mad at the weather, but this time of the year it starts to annoy me.
In like a lamb, out like a lion. That's the saying.
Out like a lamb, in like a lion?
It can go either way, but the whole thing, I don't know where this came from. My mom just told me when I was a kid, and it stuck with me. But March either comes in like a lamb or a lion, and it goes out the opposite.
Right. That might just be an old wives' tale, though, right? Like it's probably like statistically
my mom is an old wife, so
I'm telling her you said that. Anyway, that's just some thoughts I have on the.
Yeah. No, let's get to the episode then.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. No other personal anecdotes?
Not today.
All right. Season 2, episode 8, The Prince of Winterfell. Written by Benioff and Weiss, directed by Alan Taylor. You may remember Alan Taylor from such works as Thor: The Dark World, or other episodes of Game of Thrones. It's just a running joke now. I can't even help it. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah. It's out of your hands.
It's out of my hands, yeah. All right, so we start at Winterfell, and we got a shot of some dead ravens being dropped on the ground. And Theon is very proud of himself. Someone yells, "Open the gates!" I love when people yell stuff in the background. I'm a big fan of that. And then Theon's very excited to see his sister arrive. He stands there ready to be greeted like a little champion, and he is not treated that way. She just rides past him. There's a little once about and
circles him a couple of times, and
then I guess she goes inside, and I don't know what Theon is doing between the time that they arrive and when he goes to talk to her, right? Because she's already like fully munching on stuff. And
that's as easy as saying, "Go get me food to one of the
right." I get that,
right?
but I just, you know what I mean. Like it's just like, oh
yeah, she's really made herself at home. She's got her feet up on the table
very quickly, you know. So Theon is upset that he isn't getting more respect for this momentous accomplishment or at least that he thinks it is. Yara basically explains that he's an idiot, right? That why would you kill the only 2 Starks in Winterfell? You know, and that your reasoning behind it is just as weak as you are, right?
Yeah. And she's right to do so. The only thing is that does kind of fly in the face of the Ironborn values, right? Like on the surface level, obviously it's a stupid move strategically, right? They can't physically hold it, and the whole North will rise up against them. But in terms of paying the iron price and taking something, being bold and brazen, like that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, but it's like I can understand where Balon is coming from. It's like, yeah, take whatever you want, but if you can't hold it, you're just gonna end up giving it back anyway. So and the act of giving it back is just as weak as not taking it at all, or worse maybe.
Probably worse, yeah.
So,
but that kind of rationalization doesn't normally come into their thinking, right? It's just he was told to do something and he chose to do otherwise. That's probably more why she's upset with him, because it disrupts their actual war plans.
Right. It just throws a wrench into the works.
Right.
Theon thinks that he can keep the news of Bran and Rickon being dead from Robb. That is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard any character say. He'll never know. They'll never know. He went and announced that he killed Bran and Rickon to everyone in the castle, and then thought, "Oh shit!" It was like, kill all the ravens, the horses too. No one's going anywhere, right?
Yeah, and then what?
Right, and then I was just thinking about this. It didn't even occur to me the first time I was watching it, but he knows that Bran and Rickon actually got away, right?
Right.
So what happens when they reappear somewhere? Then the whole illusion comes crashing down around him. What then? Is this kind of like just fight the war in front of you kind of thing? There's one problem at a time.
I think to a degree, yeah, for sure. He's improvising. I also think that he was hoping that Osha brought more men, or Yara brought more men. Like he thought that they could hold Winterfell because this act would have gained him respect in his father's eyes, and they would have given him more of an army and more responsibility.
Yeah,
right?
I guess.
So I think that was his end game, was to actually like take a big chunk out of the North, and that's obviously not going to work.
Yara then tells him that she actually came to take him back to see their dad, and he's got some questions for him. And he says he's not going to do it. He's going to stay. And Yara tells him how much he sucked as a baby. So kind of, he's like, you really sucked as a baby, right? You're crying all the time. And he tells a story about how she came to strangle him,
because she couldn't sleep.
Because she couldn't sleep.
I don't know what. I
don't know if she was going to actually strangle him, right? Like that's just what you say. Like
sure.
She just was so exasperated, but it's not clear that Yara is that much older than Theon.
I don't remember the exact age difference, but it's only a couple years. Like it's minor.
But like, so she was a toddler, and he was, and you remember these actions from your being like that doesn't make sense. I know what happens a lot in the show is that they draw from the books and they use lines of dialogue directly from the books that make sense in the books, like from an age perspective, but when in the show don't make as much sense.
Okay, and this is not an example of one such.
Okay, but.
So,
why does it make more sense in the books?
It's not in the books.
Oh, it's not in the books, right. She's an amalgamated character, right?
No, she's a completely different. Like she's the same character, but obviously different personality in the book. But that line of dialogue just doesn't happen.
No, I get that, but they might have been. Who knows how it was done? But I don't know how is she about the same age in the books as she is in the show?
The age difference between them is similar between the books and the show.
And the story doesn't really make that much sense. But basically, what she's trying to say is he grew on her, and that she doesn't want him to die if he doesn't have to.
There's a similar line of dialogue, I believe, in season 4. Oberyn talking to Tyrion. Essentially, it's a very similar story, and I think that may be the inspiration for this one. Basically, when Oberyn and Jaime were visiting Cersei, Oberyn and Elia were visiting Jaime and Cersei at Castle Rock when they were kids. Right when Tyrion had first been born, Cersei brought them to see Tyrion because they wanted to see, he was born a monster, quote unquote, with a tail and all that stuff. And it was the same thing. He was always crying, and Cersei was mean to the baby. She pinched his little wiener and stuff like that. But I think that may have inspired this line of dialogue to a degree. Right. That same dynamic.
And is that a story that actually comes up later in the series?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about that?
Nah.
Don't die so far from the sea, she says.
Yeah, they kind of switch it actually to make it into a touching moment where she says that he smiled.
I think it's a nice touch. I like the flippant dynamic there a bit. Kind of softens the blow. Beyond the wall, we go to Jon and Ygritte, and Ygritte has taken the captured Jon to some guy called the Lord of Bones. I think it's the first time we meet him. Seems like a nice guy. Wears a giant's bone. Is that on his face?
Well, yeah,
skull.
The skull is a giant skull, and then his armor is made up of a bunch of different bones from men and animals.
Right.
Also known as Rattle Shirt, because the bones rattle when he walks.
Mr. Bones wants to gut Jon, and Ygritte makes a kind of a case for him. She says that you can't kill him because he didn't kill me, and that doesn't work. And then she says, well, you can't kill him because he knows stuff, and that doesn't work. And then she says, you can't kill him because he's Ned's kid, and that one works.
Because Mance would want to make his own decision. I think that's what eventually does work.
Yeah. I was interested to find out that all these wildlings know that Ned Stark is dead. They don't have ravens there beyond the wall. So
news travels, though. There's more. I don't think this is ever actually said in the show, but it is in the books. Tormund. There's more commerce between the Night's Watch and the wildlings than people might think, especially in places like Eastwatch.
Right.
So I mean, at this point, it's not unbelievable that the news has traveled that far.
Right, and I guess it does make for good dialogue. His death comes up like 3 times in this episode. So, yeah. Jon and Ygritte are now even, or at least that's what she says. We're now even, Jon Snow, she says. Jon then gets a moment to talk with Qhorin, Mr. Halfhand himself, who was captured as well. Apparently, all the men who went looking for Jon were killed in the process. And Jon's like, "Oh shit, they all died. They all died because of me." And he's like, "Well, yeah, but at least don't make it for nothing, right?" The story here is that Jon sucks as a ranger, as the kind of the lesson. That, and he does admit to Qhorin that he couldn't kill her, that he couldn't do it. Right. And you mentioned at the time that it was because it was as a test almost by Qhorin to see what kind of man he was. At least that's from the book.
In the books, yeah. In the show, it doesn't really come off that way, right? Because they go back to look for him, and then they just get captured and all but one killed.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's fine for the show. It just doesn't have the same impact that the story does in the book.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't give Qhorin and Jon enough time alone together.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No. Cut to Robb and Talisa, unless there's anything else you want to say about that.
Not at this point.
It gets more exciting later. Cut to Robb and Talisa. The two of them are by a lake somewhere, or river, some body of water. And they're chatting about how he's to be married to some Frey girl. He doesn't know her first name, right? Is there one particular one that that's been picked out, or is it just like one of them?
It's one of them, because the idea is that he would get his choice when the time came. Whereas Arya, I believe, was promised to a specific Frey boy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that was also part of the deal. It's like, it wasn't just one you get to choose, whichever you like the most.
Yeah,
right?
that's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
Right. And it's on the account of a bridge. Yeah. So they find it very amusing. The giggling and laughing. Isn't it funny that I have to marry someone for a bridge? You know, and even in Ryan, his dad's death is brought up again in this scene. And then out of nowhere, one of his riders shows up and tells him that Jaime escaped in the night. And he's like, "How? Ow! And then smash cut to Catelyn's face and in her tent, I guess. And Robb is there and he is pissed, right? Like he's basically saying, you betrayed me. You went behind my back. You knew I wouldn't allow it and you did it anyway. And then what makes it even worse, and I think is a really good touch, is by having Lord Karstark there in the tent, because he's had 2 people killed at the hands of either Jaime himself or the Lannisters. And
both at the hands of Jaime, both his sons.
Okay, interesting. And he just wants revenge, basically, and justice. They like to say that, justice.
Right.
They like justice. And it's been denied to him because she wants to keep her kids alive. It doesn't seem fair, right? And it doesn't. It's not really fair.
No,
and it's a
good
poor
point.
move. Yeah.
Good point.
She's just
not fair.
She tries to, her justification is, you dying or you killing him doesn't bring your kids back, but sending him away might bring my kids back.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, it's a good point. Like that's a good counterpoint, I guess. It still doesn't change.
Well, it's also a poor strategic move, right?
Well, she wasn't thinking strategically, right? It's not about the war effort at that point.
Well, no, because she was earlier, right? Like there's a similar deal was struck with Littlefinger. Like this is quite where she gets the idea, basically. But when he plants a seed and she's like, no, you don't, like, you think the value of Jaime is worth two young girls. Like it's not equal, right?
Yeah, so Kat is smart enough to think that way,
but still chooses not to.
Like she acts out of emotion at this point because, okay, just to speak strictly from the show's perspective, she sees the way that Jaime was treated in the last episode. Brienne says he won't last the night. That's her last bargaining chip and her last chance to get her daughters back.
Right.
And again, whatever, I've said it a million times, but it would make much more sense if Bran and Rickon had
she
been killed
does
at this point.
she does at least say in this scene that she's got 5 kids and only one of them are free, right? She knows that 2 of them are captured and the other 2 are also captured, are prisoners. So it's like, that's also a pretty strong motivator. Not as strong, but a pretty strong motivator, right?
Right, but nothing, that hasn't changed recently. So why did she free him now? Right. That's
well, I think so. There's that, and then plus she loses the bargaining chip if she doesn't act.
Yeah.
Right. So, opportunity cost, Dan. Right.
Right. Yeah. No. The thing that sticks out to me about this scene, one of the things that I thought was really good, with Robb specifically, that he's obviously incredibly angry.
Yeah.
But calm. It's very much like his father, the calm, northern, icy anger. The way that he treats his own mother is very
icy.
Cold.
Right?
Yeah.
It is. Well, and she's like, make sure she's guarded day and night, right? And she has like this one last little plea.
Just no remorse.
Right?
Yeah.
And just walks out.
That's well done.
Yeah. It's a good scene. It's a very good scene.
Richard Madden does a great job.
Justice.
You don't just keep saying
there's certain words that specifically in this episode that just really stick out to me. That's one of them. And the way that Joffrey says smile later on in this episode is just so strange.
Okay.
I replayed it like 4 times in a row and it's very weird. I find it very interesting. I was talking about this with a friend of mine that when people are aware that an action that they're doing is either goes against their best interest or their better interests, or they know it doesn't make sense and they do it anyway, right? That they're fully aware of it,
right?
But they still choose to act. I find that is like immensely interesting. So if I can give you a personal anecdote, I was supposed to go skating on the river this weekend on Saturday, right? And all ready to go. Got the skates packed away. And
got your little lunchbox packed.
No, we would obviously get lunch at the Forks. And we're about to leave. And then she texts me and she says, I had this thought since like earlier today and I can't shake it, that what if I slip and break my arm and she's got a month and a half left of like intense writing to do to graduate. And what if I slip and break my arm and can't write? And right. And she's like, I know it makes no sense. And I know that I'm not making any sense, but I just can't bring myself to do it. Right. That's extremely fascinating to me. And it just reminds me of that. She knows it's a bad idea and she does it anyway. It's a bit of a stretch,
It's a bit of a stretch, but and it's completely irrational. And I agree with you. But
right.
There's obviously something else, not to speak about Catelyn, what I do know about, because I don't know about that person's
motivations
or whatever.
Right.
she does have ulterior motivation, so there is in her mind a way for her to rationalize it. It seems irrational from an outside.
Oh, you can you can rationalize that decision, the skating decision too.
Sure.
That you mitigate risk and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like you can really go down a rabbit hole with that. I'm not to get into a whole thing, but I just find that's very interesting. Okay, let's cut away to Brienne and Jaime, and Brienne has been tasked with escorting, quote unquote, Jaime to King's Landing. He's trying to push her buttons because that's like one of his best, like, I guess what would you call it? It's not really one of his best qualities. You'd say that's a weird way to put it, but like it's like one of his best tools in his toolkit when it comes.
Yeah,
when
it's certainly a skill. He's good at it, at provoking people.
He antagonizing her into giving. He's basically trying to give himself a chance to escape. Right? If you can get her to be really angry, to make irrational decisions, right? Or I like how she basically like just watch. I'm going to bring this up again because I brought it up on the show when we recorded on Sunday night, the regular ToB episode. But I just watched Back to the Future, right? 2 and 3. And in Back to the Future 2 and 3, one of the through lines of that movie is that Marty McFly always reacts when someone calls him chicken. He can't stand it. And he always acts and makes an irrational decision when someone calls him chicken. He eventually learns to deal with that, but but what Jamie's here is basically trying to do the same thing. It's like, what are you, yella? Right? And like challenge me to a duel. Although at the same time, he also says you probably can't stand a chance. But like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things.
I get it. I would say in the books, he's like, there is one key phrase, and it's wench. He calls her wench. Every time he says wench, she corrects him. My name is Brienne. My name is Brienne. And that's like a part of their relationship for a while. And she always calls him Kingslayer because she's using that as an insult. And then eventually they once they become more familiar and they can see things from each other's perspectives, they essentially become friends, right? Like, they start calling each other Jaime and Brienne, and it's a whole cute thing.
Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of shippers out there for those two.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, I really like the part. I really like this because Jaime's a smart guy, and he's kind of picked up on her like nobility thing, right? And he's like, "What's your name?" A knight who's being captured has the right to know his captor's name, right? Like he doesn't give a shit about that right? Right? But it just uses that tool for his own, and she's like, you're right. I should tell him my name. That is the right thing to do.
The honorable thing to do.
Yeah, right? So I just find that interesting. And then they get in on a boat, and where the fuck's that boat come from?
That's where you keep the boats.
That's the boat spot.
That's where you keep all the boats.
They should have checked the boat spot first.
Right?
That's the first place you got to look is where the boats are.
Yeah.
On this river somewhere.
Yeah, a couple miles down the road, there's a plane spot. They could have just flown.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, nobody knows. Heavily guarded. Heavily guarded. You can't just.
No, I don't know. It's a canoe on the side of the river. I mean, it could be from anywhere, but I guess, Kate, to justify that scene, they chose to abandon the horses at that point because she saw the boat that was abandoned.
That's fair.
They didn't go to a specific spot hoping to find.
Well, to be fair, on horseback, like they could keep a pretty good, like, I don't know what you say. They could keep far enough ahead of any pursuers who are also on horseback. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, yes and no. Well, yeah, like mostly yes. But the other thing with the horses, though, you are kind of stuck to certain paths. Like, and there's that bridge, right? So that was a major thing. They didn't want to cross that bridge because it's a main artery. You're likely.
It's very it's a. You have someone in chains on another, like behind you on a horse. It's like a pretty obvious. And,
if you do that in Red Dead, people start asking questions.
Yeah. You can't just tie people up.
Yeah.
It's not couth. It's uncouth. All right. Anything else you want to say about Jaime and Brienne?
Not at this point.
It is nice to see the beginnings of what becomes a kind of nice friendship. One of the few on the show. All right. Harrenhal and Tywin's generals are suggesting that Stannis is so close to King's Landing that it might be wise for Cersei and Joffrey to retreat to somewhere safer. I also find this be interesting for a couple of reasons, because Tywin says that Joffrey can't run. He has to stand and fight because a king that runs won't be king for long, right? And which is very interesting because you could presumably be king longer if you didn't die in battle.
I mean, like technically, yes, but it's a symbolic office, right?
Yeah. But then, so he's saying that, and Tyrion thinks the same thing independently, right? Later on. And Cersei's like, no, he's just a boy. He can't, right? I think so. That's interesting kind of triangle there. Blah, 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 blah. Robb forces are very close to him as well. Apparently, it's unclear that we don't get really a map of where. I've always found that very frustrating about this season because you really have no understanding of where these camps are in relation to each other. Like, where is Robb in relation to Harrenhal? There's no way to know.
Close-ish. He's west.
Yeah, and which way is he going? Is he going towards King's Landing? Is he going towards Castle Rock?
So that's the thing. They don't know. Robb's most recent movement was to go to accept the surrender of the Crag, right? That was the last episode, which was moving further north and west, so further away from Harrenhal. At this episode, they put him.
How do we know that he was moving further west? We don't know where he was to begin with.
Well, you know essentially where he was,
he?
Where he was coming from, right? Because they come from the north. You know where the Battle of the Whispering Wood is, where the Kingslayer was captured, and the Battle of Oxcross. After that, they're progressively moving south and west, right,
towards Castle Rock,
and Lannisport. So, and then in this episode, they say they're just slightly north of Ashmark, which I'm not 100% sure exactly where Ashmark is, but it's in the west. It's close enough to the Crag. They're still.
But also, Tywin also makes a distinct point that's saying that just because that's where the scouts say they are doesn't necessarily mean that that's where.
Fair enough. They're closer to Harrenhal than Harrenhal is to King's Landing.
I see. Okay. So Tywin is decided that he's going to make a strategic decision to march through the night to get a night's march on Robb. At least that's what he says.
Does he say that specifically?
Yeah, I believe that's what he said.
Or does he just say we're gonna steal a night's march? Because we all know what happens.
I don't know for sure.
I think that might be the mislead, right? Because they're talking about the young wolf. I think you're supposed to, and Arya does think that he's going to war with her brother. Right. That's why she takes the action that he takes, or she takes rather. But we do find out in the next episode that Tywin is heading to King's Landing instead.
He's not actually heading to King's Landing. He's heading to Highgarden, presumably, right?
Oh yeah, because they have to meet up with that army.
Yeah,
which is not explained.
Like it's also like that's a lot of movement for one night.
No, I guess to again justify the show, they meet on the road at some point because Littlefinger would have already brokered that deal. So they were coming up, and Tywin probably
gets a finder's fee for that.
He takes care of himself. He used the Master Coin. He made dragons appear. Right, like he doesn't want for anything.
Right. Yeah, it's a finder's fee. Okay. So Arya is not excited about this news. Like you said, she rushes off to find Jaqen and Hagar. She runs into some nasty dudes. Those are the guys who were originally in the cage with Jaqen, I believe, right?
Rorge and Biter.
Yes, Bitey. They give her a hard time. Basically say they're going to rape her. It's very unsettling.
Rorge is the worst. I've said it every time. Like he's the most uncouth, vulgar character on the show. That's saying something because you have characters like the Hound, but Rorge is the absolute worst. Right.
Well, and the Mountain too. Yeah. I think the Mountain might be worse. The Mountain might be worse.
Because the Mountain doesn't. I'm saying like strictly because of his vulgarity.
Because of what he says.
Not like he's the most savage character. Well, maybe that too. Actually, I don't know.
It's hard to say. Anyways, so she then that doesn't help her. So she goes to find Gendry and Hot Pie, and she's on the clock here because she knows that Tywin is like leaving like now, right? So she's rushing, and Hot Pie says that they went out on patrol somewhere at some point. So it's too late. Then Tywin leaves, and she's kind of upset about it. I guess her plan was that she really wanted to get Tywin right before he got away and use Jaqen's last wish, quote unquote, to do it. We'll get to this in a bit, but like she did waste one of them, right? Her hand was forced, and then like the first one, like the tickler, like really.
Well, he's a bad dude, and he tortured people in front of her.
Yeah, but
you can understand why she might be holding a bit of a grudge.
Yeah, I guess so. But I guess again, just Tywin's clearly the better choice, or the Mountain, either of the two.
Right.
Like the dude's boss, right? Okay. Anything else you want to say about that? Tywin stuff or Arya stuff?
Yeah, we've pretty much said it all. There's not much else I can say about that, really.
Okay.
Later on, that becomes more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Beyond the Wall. So we go back to Jon. Qhorin is now, they're walking along some ridge. And Qhorin is now telling Jon that Mance plans to march on the wall and that having a man on the inside would be invaluable, right?
Obviously said well within earshot of everybody there. Like
super loud, right?
Like even the way it's shot, Rattleshirt is right behind him.
Well, his shirt rattles a lot.
I guess
it makes a lot of noise, and those bones really cover up the ears.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I was thinking the same thing. Like just way too close for you to be for me, like strategizing that way, like I think it would make more sense to not tell him that was your plan until the very last moment, right? When you know you were alone.
Right.
Because
I don't think they ever really are alone.
Well, until he kills him, they're alone. They end up like a couple yards away at the end. But it's one of those things like it almost works better for Corrin's plan if he didn't tell him, because then he doesn't know to not like to mess it up, right? He can't mess it up if he assumes that he's being like honest and actually hates his guts for getting those guys killed, right? Until the very last moment when he has him kill him, basically, and he says he reveals the plan at that moment in some very quick, fast way.
It's tough, but either way, that the plan required a forethought
and also just a little bit more subtlety.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he starts yelling at him about killing. You got those men killed, you son of a bitch, and then pushes him down a hill, and then Rattleshirt, Mr. Bones, basically says like he's not yours to kill or something like along those lines. And that's that scene. It's very short, but very important scene.
It establishes the plan.
Yeah. All right.
And there's also a weird, like, long lingering look from Ygritte. I don't know how to read that.
Yeah.
Like, where she's just looking at Jon having been pushed down a hill, and she kind of like smiles at him, like in like a loving way almost. It's not like a flirty or funny smile.
Well, I guess we're supposed to assume. I mean, it's tough to say because she does try really hard to save Jon's life earlier in this episode. Like she's like, wait. Like, and she like kind of reveals that there's something else there. There's more to it than just repaying a debt, right? She's playing cool, like, yeah, just making it even or whatever, right? But first of all, there's no pre-established rule that the wildlings have some sort of rule of I don't know how you'd put it, but like if you do something for me, there's no ipso facto rule by the wildlings that we know
Quid
of.
pro quo.
Ah, indeed. Quid and pro, Mr. Powers. But so that's not established. But anyway, so they kind of reveal that a little bit in that earlier scene. And then in this, you're supposed to say, I think you're supposed to believe that she's kind of falling for him sounds like the wrong way.
But that's definitely the intent, I think.
Yeah. I also really like Jon, right? So Cord, like, he's basically just talking to him. There's not a conversation happening. And then he starts yelling at him. And then Jon's like, no, I'm so sorry. And then gets pushed down. He legit is like upset about it. It's so weak and funny. I thought it's very amusing. Okay. Cut to King's Landing. Tyrion is complaining that Bronn is cleaning his nails in front of him. Bronn is the best. This is like one of Bronn's best scenes in the entire show. I would say it's very good. Tyrion says that he should wear the gold cloak, right? If you're going to be the king of the Lord Commander of the City Watch, you should wear the gold cloak. And he's like, nah, don't want to.
Not my style.
But he gives a lot of good reasons, right? Some strong rebuttals, it's saying like, it slows me down, makes me louder, easier to see, right? I mean, they're not designed for camouflage, obviously.
No, but it's like we were saying about the king's position. It's symbolic. It needs to be visible. That's the whole point,
right? But he's doing a good job apparently, because Varys comes in and tells him that tells Tyrion that there's been a marked decrease in thievery since Bronn took over, and it's honestly one of the funniest things that happens in the show. He's just like, yeah, me and the boys, we just went down and rounded up all the known thieves.
Yeah.
For questioning. And then there's just no answer. It's so good. So yeah, he just killed all the thieves. Just murdered them all. Executed them.
The known thieves.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Tyrion and Bronn have really...
It's a pretty brutal move by Bronn when you think about
especially for thievery, right?
Yeah.
Tyrion and Bronn have really, really good chemistry in these scenes. I love it.
Bronn has great chemistry with basically every character on the show.
Well, and Tyrion kind of does too, actually.
Mm-hmm. I also really enjoy that they're trying to strategize what to do once Stannis arrives, right? What do? We got to come up with a plan. That's why they're together there, right? So they're reading from this book of the great sieges of Westeros history by some great Grandmeister,
right.
And they all pronounce his name differently, and like so he's like, I can't quite figure it out. Then Bronn, like, it's clearly this. And then Varys comes in, and then he says, like, he clearly knows how it's pronounced. And then
he would, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's this little look from Tyrion. He's like, see? So also really like that. But how many scenes are there with Varys, Bronn, and Tyrion together? I mean, lots of Tyrion and Varys, but how many when you throw in that wild card? Not a lot,
Probably not a lot, no.
right? Gotta say, good combination.
I'm all for it. Yeah.
Bronn is just like the perfect like straight man for these two, hilarious comedians.
I'm gonna go ahead and say we're probably not gonna get too many more of those, but never say never. Those characters are all three still around.
Yeah, and often together around the same area. So we'll see. I'll be very interested to see how invested Bronn is in the final moments of this show, and I think it'll be a true test of his character. We've seen him do a lot of very brave things, and he's always said it's because of he always says it's for the gold. He saves Jaime's life because who's going to pay him, right? All these things. We'll see, I guess, at the end how true those words really are. And
I don't remember off the top of my head where Bronn ends in season 7.
Was he at the...
the last thing I remember is him saving Jaime from the dragon. What happens to Bronn after that? He goes back to King's Landing, presumably, right?
Aren't they together at that point?
Well, yeah, they jump into the river.
Right. Don't they get back to King's Landing just to see the smoking pit that is the Sept of Baelor?
Maybe, yeah. And then Jaime goes to see Cersei. I don't think we see Bronn after that.
Yeah, I don't know where he is. Is he at the dragon pit? And it's before that, but
I don't know. He's not at. No, he helps broker that, right? He brings Tyrion.
He is there, yeah, because he chats
Tyrion.
with them.
Yeah. And then he and Pod go off to get a drink.
Right.
That's probably the last that we see of him.
Interesting. So I guess we'll see. I don't know. I'm just saying I'm very interested to see how that whole situation plays out. I like Bronn. He's always been a very selfish character, so we'll see exactly how selfish he really is in the end. I mean, that's interesting. A little side story.
I don't know. He's one of those characters like the Hound that people have, because he's just a fan favorite and popular, he's become a hero, but he's not.
He's not a hero.
He's not a hero.
He's not. He just murdered a bunch of people for thievery, right. And he makes a strong case for it. He says that there's a pretty brutal story. He says about how it's like, have you ever been in a castle during a siege? He talks about how the thieves kind of are the opportunists, right? And they steal all the food, and then everyone trades everything they have to eat, and then they become the richest men in town. Right? And he's just like trying to prevent that from happening. He's just did it in a brutal way. Anyway, there is some actual planning that happens in this scene. And Tyrion says that Stannis knows King's Landing well. He knows where the strongest walls are and the weakest gates. And he's going to attack the mud gate. That's where he thinks he's going to attack, right? The most obvious choice.
Right.
Do we know anything else about the mud? It becomes like they say it a lot in the next episode. Like it's thrown around a lot, that term. But do we know anything else about it other than it's just called that?
It's one of the older, like the gates in worse repair than the other ones, right? It's not used as often as the other ones. So the Gate of the Gods, the King's Gate, the Lion's Gate are used more often. So they're not only guarded better, but also stronger, better facilities around them. The Mud Gate is actually closer to Flea Bottom, if I remember correctly. So it's in a poor area of King's Landing.
Right.
So it's just more vulnerable.
Okay.
And closer to the bay where Stannis would be landing.
Right. Okay.
It's south, I believe.
Guess we'll see. I mean, we do know how this plays out, but I'm just saying that it's an interesting that he would pick that out, and it's a smart strategic move. Tyrion, this is new to him. He's not typically a war planner, right? They do say that they have pig shit. That's what they say that they have. They don't have a lot, but they have pig shit. That's what they say. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. The greater significance of that.
There isn't greater significance to that. It just means that at that point they're drawing a blank.
Yeah.
Which is like Tyrion, at this point, he has a plan.
Right.
The wildfire is already his plan.
Well, I think this is a backup plan. This is like not even backup plan, but like he can't assume that's going to kill all of the men, right? It's going to stop all of the ships, right?
Right.
So we'll see.
You just think that they would have mentioned the wildfire. Like, I guess I get it. It's.
I think it's designed to be kept a secret.
Yeah.
So especially from Varys, who is chatty, to say the least.
quite the opposite, right? Varys is the master of whispers.
No. It doesn't but he could reveal that to any, like, if he feels. I think Tyrion would think that Varys could reveal that to somebody.
He could sell their secrets. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't describe him as chatty. Like, he's the complete opposite.
Well,
he's a picture of discretion.
Would
right?
you trust Varys with your greatest secrets?
Yes, but not. No.
Yes.
No.
Well, yeah.
But not because I think he would let it slip, which is what was implied.
Well, no, he's not. Yeah, he doesn't have loose lips, but he could. He's willing to part with that information for the right prices.
Right.
Right. Okay. So we go back to Beyond the Wall again. Gorgeous sunset. A lot of great shots from Beyond the Wall. Always. Sam is digging a hole. Turns out these are latrine pits, which, if you're not familiar with a latrine pit, it's a poop pit.
And pee.
It's a poop hole. You can pee anywhere.
True.
Sam wonders where Jon is. They think that, he's probably dead, right? Which is, Sam doesn't think that, but everyone else seems to think that.
Just Dolorous said, and that's part of it, why his character is named Dolorous. He's gloomy and
yeah.
He's
I do like the
pessimistic.
part where he's like, and they're like, well, Corn Halfhand, he's the greatest ranger alive. He's like, well, the greatest rangers don't get old, and neither do the bad ones. So those ones in the middle, those are the ones that live a long time.
Yeah.
Right? They find some rock with markings from the First Men, and underneath it, they find dragon glass wrapped in a Night's Watch cloak. How did they know it's a Night's Watch cloak?
They're men of the Night's Watch. They would recognize one of their own. It's a black cloak. You don't see a lot of those north of the wall.
That's true. Why do you think these would be wrapped in Night's Watch?
I think we're
cloak?
meant to believe that Cold Hands did that. That Ben Stark did that.
Really? Benjen?
Benjen, yeah.
You just called him Ben?
Yeah.
Do people just call him Ben?
We're on that sort of nickname basis.
I've never thought to even call him Ben. That's weird. Anyway, okay, so Benjen, we're supposed to believe that Benjen did that.
Yeah.
Because he knows what's coming and no one else does. Where is he right now? Where is Benjen right now?
He's dead, man. He becomes Cold Hands.
So how does he come back exactly?
That is still unclear. And that's something that I'm really interested in. But he obviously dies and he comes back to life, not as a mindless white, but he has similar features. He's cold. All of his blood, sort of concentrates in his extremities. His hands are all black. He doesn't eat or drink anything. Blah blah blah. So he's the living dead, but he retains his consciousness and enough of his memories that he knows who Jon is. He helps Bran.
He's probably brought back by the Children of the Forest, right?
I guess. I think it does have something to do with the Three-Eyed Raven. He helps Bran get to the Three-Eyed Raven, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was sent by the Three-Eyed Raven to collect Bran.
Yeah.
He also helps Sam and Gilly, but it's not clear how he was brought back.
Yeah. Okay. No, I guess we'll never know. He had such a cool death, right? Go to Harrenhal. She's upset with she being Arya is upset with Jaqen for not helping her when she wanted it. She's found him. It's much later in the day. And she asked for him to kill Tywin before he attacks Robb. He says this is not possible, which wasn't made clear that there was stipulations about rules that you couldn't ask to kill anyone.
No, he said he could. It just wouldn't be immediate.
Oh, right. He said, oh, yeah. Right. He says, death is certain, time is not.
Right.
So he asked her to name someone else. Right. So she names Jaqen Hagar. Tricky move.
Right.
Tricky move. And I find, so this is,
it's like asking a genie for 1,000,000 wishes.
yeah. There's a really funny, I don't know what you call it, like a tweet that I saw once. It was like, you can't ask for more wishes. Like, I wish for more genies. And he's like, shit. And then the other genies, shit. But similar loophole in the wishing rule. And I like how flabbergasted he is. It's like, this isn't a joke. You can't just joke around. It's serious stuff. You can't just name his own name. And he's like, oh, I'm not joking. And she's pretty brutal when she says, yeah, you can go kill yourself. It's like, why? Because you didn't do what you told, like what you said you would do when you said you'd do it?
Because in this case, the Red God / Many-Faced God, they keep calling it the Red God at this point in the series. is owed to death, so he would be honor bound or whatever you want to call it.
To
Not
kill
necessarily
himself.
honor bound, but yeah, to kill himself to even the
Right.
score.
I just find it very like he's much in this season. He's a lot more like loosey goosey, kind of less stoic than he really becomes later in the series. I find like he's not nearly as chatty in season, 4 and 5,
I think
5 and 6. You know what? Like you know what I mean?
Well, here's a better question though: is that even the same guy? Right? You could have that face.
Right. It's possible it's not.
Right.
It's possible that it's not.
Although they have a rapport, like he seems to remember her, but that could also be information that this version of him brought back. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're meant to believe it's the same person.
I think you are meant to believe it. I'm just throwing
And
out the
also,
possibility that it's not.
How does him not being the same person make for a better story? It doesn't, right? It doesn't make a better story. And that's always like when it comes down to it, that is really what I try to think about a lot when it comes to that kind of stuff. Does that make for a better, more interesting story? No. It's just like a dumb factoid.
Right.
Yeah. So she bargains with him that she'll unname him if she helps her escape with her friends. Now, he says that he promises that they'll walk out the gates at midnight, right? So do you want to get into this counting situation now?
Yeah. So this came up. Obviously, we talked about it last time, and it came up in John's email. To your point from, I think it was last week, right? It must have been last week.
Mm-hmm.
The soldiers that are being hanged aren't part of the equation. That's not.
Why not though?
Because that's not Arya actively taking lives. Or Jaqen.
It's a direct result of their actions. Incidental.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because neither of them are actively like it. So in the case, and this is what John said in the email as well. In the case of the three people, Rorge, and Jaqen, that were saved, Arya actively took action to really nail down that term to save them. She stole those lives that were promised to the Red God.
I don't know for some reason, but okay. Yep.
Because they would have died otherwise.
Okay.
So that was what was meant to happen. She stole them. So those 3 lives had to be repaid. That's why he's doing this for her.
Right.
Those other people that die are not part of that because he didn't actively kill them. They're not being stolen or given to the Red God.
But they wouldn't have died if it wasn't for these actions that
maybe not. Maybe not. There's no way to know that.
Yeah, I think that's a. I don't know if I agree with that either. And then now it gets even more complicated because
but to use that logic though, Julian, like that the snowball effect that would have, like that accounting system wouldn't.
Well, there's a statute of limitations, right?
Well, I mean, so now you're putting weird limitations on, right? The fact of the matter is, Jaqen's the one who observes this. He's the one who sees that those lives are taken. He's the one that's repaying that debt. So those other soldiers that died, that's not him taking those lives. That's not him balancing his scales or Arya's scales. That's somebody else's problem. So those soldiers that are being hanged, maybe somewhere down the line that's balanced somewhere else. That's part of the religion that they don't have control over, but they do have control over their own actions. Now, where it gets tricky for me is when they're escaping just now, Jaqen kills like 4 guards. so now it's off. Now it was out of balance.
But I guess even then she didn't name a guard's name. She named his name, and he's doing is taking a bunch of other lives to get out of that last one, right? Which is less sense, but it's not just one name. Then he took multiple to do it, right?
No, I know, but then if just in terms of the death life balance, those scales, if there's one owed,
and he chose to murder these people,
4.
Yep.
Like then either that one is still owed and those 4 are just casualties, and that's fine, or the debt is really, as long as she agrees that the debt is forgiven. But then it's like, how do you
like
account
how
for
does
that?
she get to decide that?
Right.
Because he made it clear that like she has to name 3 names.
And the whole point of it though, much like any religion though, it's not always strictly observed. It's more of a guideline, right?
I guess.
And that's what I like about it is that this character, Jaqen, much like other characters like Melisandre comes to mind, uses the religion and the tenets of that religion for their own personal gain and their own personal motivations, right? So they can, if in this case his life was threatened and he's found a loophole, he wouldn't have found that loophole for anyone else.
It's like, what's his name later on? The
High Sparrow.
Price, yeah. Jonathan Price. Yeah. He does the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's very few, if any, like
and there's
actually like pious priests.
And there's strong parallels to our regular world we don't need to get into necessarily, but it's definitely there.
That's a pretty slippery slope. We don't want to start falling down. All right, King's Landing. And Tyrion and Cersei are having a nice conversation. He's just finished eating. And Cersei is worried about Joffrey going into battle. Tyrion wants him there to be an inspiration to the men. It's ulterior motives. I think he assumes that Tyrion will die in battle. So I think he kind of hopes that. I think a little bit kind of hopes that.
I think he would be happy if Joffrey did die. I don't know if that's necessarily why he's putting him there. He's right, much like Tywin said earlier, and you notice that parallel. The king needs to be there. They need to know what they're fighting for. If he's just a little boy hiding behind his mother's skirts, the men are not going to want to defend the walls.
Yeah. They're not going to want to very much anyway, but yeah. Then there's this weird tangent where Cersei starts talking about, like she says, like, why Varys is so smart and cunning and powerful? And it's because he doesn't have a dick. And it's like, you're going off on a weird tangent here. I'm not following. And there's some coy jokes, and then Cersei starts like laughing like a maniac kind of. And or just smiling in general makes her look like a maniac. And Tyrion's like, wait, why are you smiling? Something's not right. This doesn't feel good. This isn't comfortable. And we're led to believe that Cersei has found Shae. And apparently Tyrion had given her a necklace that has like a lion necklace, which is a dead giveaway, right? So when she says that, does that tip him off, or is it not till she arrives that he's
I think not till Roz arrives.
Right. Because Roz probably gave Shae probably gave Roz that necklace or something like that.
It's hard to say.
Right. Or Tyrion gave it to her earlier, maybe to like it's hard to it doesn't really matter, but it just I'm thinking about it. So once Shae arrives, apparently
Roz.
When Roz arrives. They shoot it pretty cool. Because like she's wearing like the same color dress that we always see Shae in, right? And then they get the reverse shot and like, oh, it's the other one that we know.
Yeah.
And so then obviously you can see like the kind of the weight come off Tyrion's shoulders there a bit. And he kind of plays it, plays it up a bit. He walks over to her and says, "Don't worry, I won't let you be captured for long." What I don't get though is why does she play along?
Because that's her only way out. Like Tyrion is being earnest when he's saying that to her, that he will get her out and he'll do everything he can.
Is he?
Yeah, 100%.
Is he though, Dan? He's being very he's obviously putting way more into it than he normally would have.
He's walking this tightrope where he has to make it believable for Cersei, make her believe that he's emotionally invested. But also he wants to get Roz out of there. She is in that position because of him. He feels some degree of responsibility towards her. So he's being earnest when he says he's going to get her out.
I guess. He probably feels pretty bad about the whole Joffrey thing. Right?
That too, yeah. And that it's his fault. She was mistaken for Shae, which is something that he is on a level ashamed of, right? Like,
yeah, well, she's onto him in some way. She just didn't know. She thought she had him, but she just missed, right? Okay. Anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I keep doing this, but in the books, it makes a bit more sense. So he has to go to a specific whorehouse, and then there's a secret passage that he uses to get to Shae's manse, where he goes to visit her at night. So he's using the fact that he visits this whorehouse as a front for going to visit Shae.
Right.
So in the books, they capture this one specific whore or lady that he visits. And so he feels that responsibility towards her. So they don't have that same relationship, but I think the feelings are still there.
Okay.
In terms of his responsibility towards her.
Before they cut away, Tyrion then repeats the lines to Cersei that she had said to him when he had sent Marcella away, about how your joy will turn to ashes in your mouth, and
is that exactly what she said to him?
Pretty sure.
I know she says she had threatened him, and I thought this was a nice reciprocation of that.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what it is, yeah. Or if not exactly, just very, very similar. Right?
Interesting.
because right that this is her striking, right? And that's why he recognized that this was that move that she had kind of
It'd be
alluded
really lame to use the exact same thread, actually.
to.
That's like,
I know you are, but what am I? I'm rubber, you're glue. All right. Tyrion and Shay. Tyrion now he's had this. He got it all worried, right? And then it wasn't as big of a deal as he thought. So he rushes back to his room, which could be a dead giveaway, right? But
rush in, yelling
like,
Shay before he even closes the door.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a lot of people here like not great with the subterfuge, eh?
Especially because they always talk about how King's Landing is a nest of vipers, how the walls have ears, you know.
Yeah. Anyway, he gets really emotional. You know, you're mine and I'm yours and all that kind of stuff. And kind of, I guess it's kind of a glimpse behind the curtain a bit for Tyrion, right? Who's a lot more fragile, I think, than he lets on, and is really opens himself up to Shay, which is, you know,
that's the main
makes
reason.
him very vulnerable.
Exactly, that betrayal has that much more impact later on.
Yeah. I guess we didn't mention that Cersei had brought up the whole former marriage that he'd had, and she doesn't really talk about it very much, but I always find that to be like really interesting that he was basically set up by his family once already in a very similar situation. So you'd think he'd like have learned a little bit, but he's got a soft spot. Not his fault.
No.
All right. Robb's camp. Robb is talking with Roose Bolton about the situation at Winterfell. Apparently no ravens have returned from the north. So I'm confused. So they sent ravens to where and none came back? I know they were killing ravens at the beginning, but like were they shooting them out of the air? Like, how's that work?
No, so at the beginning, Theon was just killing all the ravens in Winterfell
exactly.
to prevent any message from being sent out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they received messages and just killed those ravens too, without sending a response.
But it seems like he hasn't got a response from his own son, which is kind of weird.
No, they've had responses from. That's why they know where Ramsay is at this point and how close he is to Winterfell and what their plans are. So they can get word to any of the other northern houses. They just can't get anything in or out of Winterfell.
Well, did they expect to get something out of Winterfell?
Yeah, a list of demands potentially.
Maybe, yeah. Robb tells Roose that to send word to Ramsay with a pretty generous offer for the Ironborn who are with Theon. The exception being that does not apply to Theon, right? And that he will hunt Theon down no matter where he goes, right? He really feels like this is like two betrayals by people close to him, right? The first one, he was already mad about it. And now Catelyn, how he's that really kind of like rubbed the reopened that wound, right? So he's really fucking pissed off at Theon because I think he sees that action that Theon took as being a catalyst for what Catelyn did.
Sure.
And then is like, oh, you just keep fucking things up for me. I can't wait to chop your head off, I guess.
Well, and the thing is, as much as he did ostensibly punish his mom, he can't actually. He can punish Theon. He can take it out on Theon.
Yeah. So anyway, Roose says, I'm sure that his men will take that right away. And I'm pretty sure that they do. Isn't that? Yeah.
Yep.
They take that action pretty quick because they know they're in a kind of crappy situation. They've got Winterfell and that's all they have. They don't have enough men to hold it, so. Then Talisa barges in again.
Just shows up.
Just no tact. Just knock first.
And also, like, what are the guards doing? They just let her walk in?
She's Lady Talisa. She's a big deal around camp.
Yeah.
She's besties with the king. You can't. What are you gonna do? What happens if it finds out they didn't let her in? It's one of those. It's like you're gonna be the one to tell Robb that we didn't let Talisa in
into his war council.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like, nope. Okay, we're letting her in. So Robb snaps at her a little bit, kind of has like a little tiff there for a second, and then he immediately apologizes, and because he says he wants to be a good king, and he talks about not being raised to be a king, but he was raised to be the Lord of Winterfell. You skipped over this scene, so I'm sure this is all new to you.
I didn't skip over it, but.
You skipped through it. So I actually really like this story. I think it's probably the most endearing thing that Talisa does on the entire show.
Well, they had to give her something.
Which is, she tells a story about when she was young and her parents had left to go on a wedding. And they were gone for several days. And it was the hottest day in Volantis. So they all went down to the river to go swimming, and the rich and the poor and everyone was there swimming in the river because it was just so damn hot, right? And her brother was there with her, and next thing she knows, her brother was lying face down in the river. They pull him out of the river, and she feels like she's helpless. He's dead, and there's nothing she can do about it. Then some slave pushes her out of the way and performs CPR. She does this whole thing where it's like, she tells a lot better than me, where she says, like, slaves in Volantis, they have tattoos, so you know who they are before you're having to talk to them, right? And then it's like, he pushed me out of the way. For him to do that, it would be is basically death for him. But he does it anyway, and then performed CPR on her brother and saved his life, right? They don't call it CPR, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. And she decides then and there that she wasn't going to live in a slave city anymore, and was going to dedicate her life to doing something more than just being a highborn princess, whatever, lady. About learning the newest steps, I think she says, for the dances or whatever. Playing the hit tunes on her harp. And it's kind of funny, actually. Like this teen princess punk. Yeah. With a harp and learning. She knows all the cool dance moves. All the men would be into her. And then Robb just says, I don't want to marry the Frey girl. And she says, I don't want you to either. And then they make out. And then next thing you know, they're naked. And then you cut away, and there's a lot of giggling and laughing and ha ha ha. Oh, you're breaking your oath. And then cut away. So yeah, that happens. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're building towards it all season. You knew basically within the like second or third interaction they had that was the plan.
Oh yeah.
And it's Robb deliberately, knowingly breaking his oath
and doing it, like, not necessarily in front of all of his his generals, but like essentially, like,
yeah, with they know they can guess what's going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of bruh going on.
Yeah.
Like, bruh.
Yeah.
Especially Roose with that burning look that he gives them in was it last episode, I think. Oh,
right.
I mean the last episode before, I think, because he was gone for an episode. But telling you what. Then we go to Harrenhal. We did this already. They escaped. Nothing really to say there. Then we cut to Stannis' ship. Always love a good Stannis scene. Like, really do. And this one's a really good one. So Stannis is talking with Davos, and he's telling, Davos, I respect you. And he's like, really? That's a really nice thing to say. Thanks. And he talks about, all these other lords and ladies making fun of you, calling you an onion knight. And you're like, and you just took it on. You kind of wore it as a badge of honor, and that like took away their power to make fun of you, right? And how he's saying like, yeah, well, my kid kind of wants me to change it. Also, notice there's one like lingering shot of his kid as they walk by. Talk about a character you never got to know, right?
Yeah.
And then is never even really mentioned almost ever.
Because there's not much to say. He dies. What do you want?
Well, we spent a lot of time with Davos, but he almost never brings up his dead kid.
I don't know.
So anyway, that happens. And then Stannis tells the story about how he was starved, how they were starving inside of Storm's End, right? And that's the family home of
House Baratheon.
Of Baratheons.
Yeah.
Okay. And so just during the war, the rebellion, right? And he was told by his brother Robb to hold the castle while they were off being
so Robert would have left from Storm's End and left it under Stannis' control. So Stannis was tasked with maintaining Storm's End, and then the southern houses laid siege to Storm's End because it was closer. Mm-hmm. So he was surrounded by House Tyrell. Mace Tyrell was leading the siege, and Paxter Redwine, the Redwine armada, closed off the ocean or the narrow sea to them. Mm-hmm. So they couldn't get food.
The last name was Redwine?
Redwines are from the Arbor, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They make wine in the Arbor.
Right.
It's red wine with a Y, though.
Okay, right. So I love Stannis's, like, first of all, the story itself is very cool. Like the way he tells it, the way it's delivered is just next level awesome. I love Stannis. I can't express this enough. He's just such a insanely intriguing person. And so he's talking about, first we ate the horses. Well, we had nowhere to go, right? We weren't going anywhere. Of course, we'll eat the horses. Lots of meat there. Then we'll eat the cats. Don't really like cats, so I was kind of okay with that. We eat the cats. Dogs, though, like dogs, very loyal. Ate the dogs, though. Also ate them. Then the rats, and then we were starving. And then you came with your black sailboat with onions and potatoes and some meats. I'm just unclear as to why Davos helped him.
It is. I'm also unclear about it. You can choose to look. We all know Davos is a very decent person. He does the right thing. He cares about people. So he may have just seen people suffering and chosen to do that. He is an accomplished smuggler. There's two ways to look at it. The other way to look at it, if you want to be a bit more cynical, is that he's profiting by doing that. He took
it as an opportunity to gain favor, right?
It's really hard to say because obviously he couldn't have predicted what happened to him. He couldn't have predicted being made a knight.
Right.
And he wouldn't...
Or his hand being chopped in half.
Forget about that, but he wouldn't have been able to predict the outcome of the war. So doing this was to save Stannis' people, but it was an act of treason to... the
crown. He's already, but to be fair, he's already committing crimes.
It's not clear why he would choose to take sides at that point.
Right.
One of the reasons that I can think of is in the books. It's very different in the show. In the show, he just has one kid. In the books at that time, though, he does have he just had his first, but maybe 2 kids or something like that. He has 12 kids. Becoming a father maybe changed him, and he started to take his life more seriously and his kids' future more seriously. So he wanted to get out of smuggling and into something else. Maybe it's really difficult to say. And then another reason that I was thinking of, it actually came up earlier when we were I can't remember what we were talking about, but the opportunity cost and thievery and stuff like that.
Right.
Basically, those things would be sold at an immense profit.
Mm.
The same way that thieves in King's Landing would steal everything and then sell it at a profit.
Right.
So if you're a smuggler and you see a very low supply, high demand market, right?
You really can't get much more lower supply than starving people in a castle.
Right. But then he didn't sell them, so that doesn't really.
Well, no, but he didn't get it. He didn't get money out of it, but he got favor.
Right.
He's upward mobility, right?
Right. It's really difficult to say.
How many smugglers? How many sons of crabbers ever become knights?
Yeah,
right?
but it's just the thing is the thing that throws a wrench into that whole theory.
So he couldn't have expected that.
Not only could he not have expected that, but ever since, it's not like he's a political player. It's not like he's constantly concerned with advancing his house and playing the Game of Thrones, right? He's just constantly just being a nice guy.
His motivation is...
So I think his character is more like the Aladdin type of thief. He's a beggar.
More of a Robin Hood type?
Yeah.
Steal from the rich, give to the poor.
No. But someone who steals...
Or, sorry, in this case, steal from somebody and then give to the rich, in this case.
In that one specific case. But no, I think he's more just stealing out of he's a smuggler out of necessity. It's something that he knows he wasn't good at anything else. And he's still a good person, a decent person at heart. He wouldn't steal from starving people, and he wouldn't kill kids or anything crazy like that. So I think he just decided to be a hero that day.
Yeah,
it's a simple
answer, but it's like the comic book stuff. Anyone could be a hero. You just need the right opportunity. I feel like that's something Captain America would say.
Great.
I just think of that Captain America thing, like that little clip where he's sitting down on the chair. So, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
It's the little motivation. I can't remember what it's from. If it's one of the Avengers movies, I think. And it's a clip from it's from Spider-Man. It's in the classroom. And Captain America's talking to the classroom. So you've got detention, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you smuggled some onions in, Okay. But Stannis then kind of says I've always just done my duty. I've always, he said, you saw people starving and you helped. And I was told to keep Storm's End, and I did it not because I wanted to, but because it was the right thing to do, because it was my duty to do it. And then he gave up King's End to his younger brother.
Storm's End, yep.
Yeah. What did I say?
You said King's End.
Oh yeah, Storm's End. To his younger brother, even though he wasn't in the war, he didn't help and even after he did everything he said he would do, he still gave it up because that was his duty. And he saw, I guess he sees a lot of himself, I think, in Davos sometimes as someone who does the right thing, and also someone that is his moral compass but not
Definitely.
that, but would never admit that, like outwardly. He might like drop hints about it, but he would never just say, Davos, you really give me make the right choices that I've
Yeah,
feel
no,
like,
Davos. The purpose that he serves is he grounds Stannis in reality. Stannis if he is too invested in Melisandre, he'll burn people alive, and he eventually does, right? When he goes down that path, and Davos is what keeps him sane almost.
Yeah. Anyway, so Stannis says that by all the rights of Westeros, deserves the throne, right? It's his by right, and that once they take the throne, Davos, you're going to be my hand of the king, right? And you'd have to assume that he would have done a good job. He would have been probably pretty good at it, right?
It's hard. Yeah, most likely, and yeah. It's hard to say. He's not, again, a political player. He's not really versed in that, but you don't necessarily need to be a hand. It's more about that moral compass stuff and just being honest and giving him good counsel.
Right. Like when Ned says we're not killing babies in their cribs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And no, Davos definitely would, because he takes it upon himself to learn how to read for that express purpose, to be a better hand. Like, so he tries to better himself so that he can be better for Stannis. He would have been a great hand.
Yeah. And then he ends up with Jon and Dany and Tyrion. It's like a who's who of all the best hands.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's basically it. I just like that scene a lot. A lot going on there. Really good. Stannis is so good. King's Landing. Joffrey is upset with Varys because he doesn't know what the Starks are up to or where they are. And he's supposed to be the Lord of Whispers, and you don't know. And he wants to attack now, right? Because he's all blustery. And Tyrion points out that, they're not really in a great position for that, they're like, have you noticed these people around us who are preparing for a siege? Like, what are we going to do? Go out and wage war on the Starks, just give up King's Landing? Like, doesn't make sense. And then Joffrey says, well, when Stannis arrives, I'll go out and meet my uncle. And it's always funny to forget that he thinks that it's actually his uncle. and greet him, and then pulls out his sword. He says that he'll give him a red smile, but he doesn't say smile. He says smile, like a red smile. It's very like go and.
I mean, you're the one who watched it.
It's
6
so
times.
weird, but yeah, it's just him saying like he'll from ear to ear and just cut his head off, I guess, whatever.
Slit his throat.
Yeah. Varys and then he just walks off. He just like walks away after that. He's like, and my job here is done.
and like you have to imagine like that's 90% of Joffrey's life is like walking around to people saying some bullshit like that and then walking away. It's like everybody knows that he's everybody around in King's Landing. He's just talking to people. So
he goes in. You just gotta imagine he goes up to one of those random people. Is like, I hear he never smiles. I'm gonna give him a red smile. And like, yes, you will.
And everyone around court is trained to just be like,
yeah, sure. And he's like, yeah, this is going well. This is going to go well. Varys and Tyrion then have a coy little kind of back and forth, right? I don't really understand that part where Tyrion's kind of like, I wish we could talk to each other like intelligent men. He's like, yeah, I wish we could too. Like, there's this part where what is the frustration there? That they can't just be honest with each other, or...
Well, yeah, largely, yeah. They can't be 100% honest with each other. They both have to keep up appearances.
Well, yeah, but they've had private conversations too.
This isn't a private conversation.
No, I know, but you get the impression that it's no different than the conversations they have in anywhere else.
Well, the whole conversation is them talking about playing the game, and they're actively playing it as they're having the conversation, right? This is a conversation that's you're playing a game that's aware of itself.
It's a dream inside a dream.
Not at all.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's fun. He says like there's the classic line about all these gods burn people. This god wants people burned alive. This god wants people drowned to death. Like why do all these gods suck so much? Where's the god of tits and wine? He says, right? And then Varys tells him about the fertility god with 6 teats. He's like, let's sail there now.
16 in the Summer Isles, yeah,
right,
where they worship hedonism essentially. So and they respect sexuality. It's not something that is considered
the hedonism bot. Ooh. Okay. Tyrion then talks about how he was never really given real power. And he's kind of cut off before he can finish his sentence here. But he says that, so when he was appointed the acting hand of the king, blank, because Tyrion cuts him off because he says, you make a good king or a good hand, right? What do you think he's trying to say there? That he was surprised, that he was, because he says that he's kind of surprised that he enjoys the game, quote, as much as he does, right? So
when he was appointed hand of the king, he took the job seriously, the same way that he took the job with the cisterns and the drains seriously.
Right.
He was the metaphor there, if I could apply a metaphor or an analogy there too, is he was put in charge of draining the pipes and whatever at Castle Rock, and he did, and he was gonna use
drain the swamp.
Yeah, I was gonna very overused and often ill-used,
often
political
ill-used.
term.
Yeah,
drain the swamp at King's Landing.
Right, and he did a pretty good job of it. Right.
Well, he tried to.
Well,
he started he got rid of Janos Slint.
Yeah.
Right. He humbled Pycelle, and he was working on trying to make Joffrey either a better person or
get rid of him all,
Cersei out of the equation a little bit.
Right. Figuring it out. He was on the right path. Varys tells us something that we already knew, right? That he's made a good hand of the king. He mentions that how Ned and Jon Arryn were both good men, noble men, but they never liked the politics involved, and that Tyrion's good at the politics. And yeah, that's basically that scene. Anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. The way that world, especially that political world, is set up is things like honor and integrity are predictable at the end of the day. And that's why they lose in King's Landing.
Good guys finish last in this world, basically.
Yeah.
Qarth. Oh, because there's actually a quick scene here. There's a quick moment where they just briefly, Varys talking to Tyrion says, hey, that Daenerys Targaryen, she's alive and she has 3 dragons, right? And they're like, well, one problem at a time, right?
He says one game at a time.
Right. Which is interesting. Cut to her. They're in Qarth, and just one scene, just a quick one. Dany wants Jorah to take her to the House of the Undying.
Can we just, the way that scene starts, though, she's looking in a shuttered window. Is she looking for her dragons in an abandoned house?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
What are we supposed to?
I think she's
because it's not the House of the Undying.
No, and it's
know
not.
That's what they've been taking.
And it can't be at Xaro's house either, because she can't trust him either. So it must be some hidden garden that they're using as a safe house for now, right? Who knows?
Just her looking through the shutters, she's
looking to make sure no one's coming.
They weren't followed yet.
Yeah. Anyway, Dany wants him to take her to the House of the Undying. He suggests that maybe they just leave for Astapor instead, because if they stay, they'll die. And she says she won't leave without her children. Jorah's like, okay, I get it. They're your kids, but they're not actually your kids, right? They didn't suckle from your teat, I believe, or your breast is what he says.
But they did. Whatever.
Did they?
Yeah, they did. Maybe again, not in the show, but they certainly did in the books.
Well, they make it very clear that they didn't in the show. But she's convinced that her own magic will protect her, right? So you saw what happened. I survived those flames. I got something going for me, right? And then she's touches him on the shoulder and has this touching moment and says listen, these are my kids. I won't have any other kids. So I need this. It doesn't matter. There is no option. I know that I'm going into a trap. I have to, right? And that's basically it. We cut away. Anything else you want to say about that?
Well, there's not much to say. It's just a reminder of where Dany is. It has to, because next episode is just the battle of Blackwater. You need this scene here to set up Dany for what she goes through in episode 10.
Mm-hmm. And I think we check in with basically everybody. I don't know if we missed anyone.
Bran.
No, we see them at the very end.
Yeah.
Which is right now. Winterfell is and where we are. Theon wants the bodies of the kids buried, right? And he wants to send gold to the farmers, right? So cute that he's like, if you want someone silenced, you silence them. You thought they were. He's out. What does he say? He says they're feeding the fields, I think.
Right.
Which is actually a fairly eloquent way of saying it for an Ironborn, I think. And I guess I don't know what does Yara coming and pointing out that killing them was not only dumb, but also be cruel and unnecessary, right? That gives him this kind of like moment of kind of it kind of softens him a bit. He's like, okay, I'll go send gold to these people, or what's the deal?
I don't know if it's necessarily Yara. We've talked extensively about Theon's guilt just in general. So obviously he felt guilty. He chose, like we said in the last episode, it's better to be cruel than weak, right? He chose to be cruel. He's regretting it now.
Right.
So maybe he's trying to make recompense. I don't think it has anything to do with Yara necessarily.
Okay. So Lewin sees this kind of this exchange from afar, and he looks at the boys on the wall. He's like,
And he also sees Osha just like sneaking around.
Is like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. She might as well be wearing like a black mask and a pointy hat.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So she's Osha's sneaking around getting food, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
And that tips them off to go check out the crypts. I guess that's where they're hiding. Are they hiding in the crypts? And it's unclear how big the crypts are. We always ever just see that one hallway. We don't like. Is it bigger than that?
They're huge.
Okay.
So there's that one, and then there's lower halls with even older kings.
Oh.
Who I don't even know how low it goes, but it's extensive.
Okay. And Lewin says, like, he speculates that, yeah, it's probably the farmers' boys that were the ones who were dead. It's like Osha's doing this like recounting of their story. Like, we went all the way to the farmhouse. We doubled back because they didn't expect them to. Last place they'd look was be right under their nose, right? Makes sense, but like pretty risky. And then Lewin's like, well, you know what? Let's not tell Bran about this. He'll blame himself for it, and they already got enough going on. And then we like pan around, like we do a pan with the camera, and then Bran's just like they're just like super close to him. Yeah. Again, these people they're being super loud and not like, what are you doing?
So conspicuous.
Yeah. And so he clearly, and we know that Bran actually does carry the guilt of those boys.
He has to.
Does he have to? It's not really his fault, right?
Kind of, because they went to the farm. They like led them to the farm and then doubled back, right?
Right. That's true.
And he also sent those boys there. Remember?
Yeah, but like when he sent them there, that wasn't, he didn't know that was
Of course not, but he's
happen.
still gonna feel like he had a hand in it.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the episode. That's it.
Yeah. Another good one. Another better episode.
I think it was very well paced. It's one of the better,
especially because this
season
kind of does jump around because there's a million characters.
Yeah, but not like we talked about a couple episodes ago, where like in the last 10 minutes of the episode is like bang, 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 like 15 scenes.
Right.
And this is not like, I remember, was it last week? I was like, okay, and we're still going. Like, there's more to go. And this doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, in terms of patience, it has time to do those scenes like with Tyrion and Bronn. A very patient scene, very slow down. You have some time with the characters. You let them be silent and just in each other's presence, and then you have that chemistry between them that carries the scene, right?
Yeah. And like it doesn't like the show actually does a lot of legwork in setting up not only next week's episode but also the week after. So it's got a lot to do, and I think considering how well it works, I think you got to give it high marks for that. It does a really good job.
Definitely.
What's your favorite scene?
I think it's going to be the Tyrion and Bronn scene.
I'm going with the Stannis one.
Yeah,
I really like it. I really like it.
Are.
Yeah, well,
that's
my prerogative.
It's not there's no wrong answers, man.
I feel like if I told you that it was this last scene with Osha and Lewin, I think that you would consider that the wrong answer, right?
You don't know what I would consider.
Anyway, so that's this week. Obviously, next week is the big battle scene called Blackwater. I think that our breakdown will probably be a lot shorter. It's harder to break down these.
I don't remember how it worked for Battle of the Bastards. Must have been a longer episode still.
I don't think so. I don't remember.
No,
that.
And then the other one was the wall. The battle at the wall. I don't remember.
I don't recall. It's all a blur, Dan. There's
like the things you still go through it scene by scene. It's just there's less to say because there's much less nuance to it. It's more just there's a battle going on.
Yeah. So again, we'll be here to break it down. If you are looking for some bonus content and you haven't already done so, go over to patreon.com/TowerBabblecast. Drop us a couple bucks and get access to our Death Pool episode, which I teased last week. It's up there now. I forgot to mention this at the top of the show, but one of the cool benefits of being a Patreon subscriber is you get your own personal RSS feed. So if you take that RSS feed from the Patreon page and you place it in, you just drop it into iTunes or whatever podcasting thing you use, you'll get all of our shows on like the regular publicly available shows that we always do, plus the bonus content automatically to your phone. So
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was a feature.
Mhm.
That makes a lot of sense.
I guess follow us on Twitter at TowerBabblecast, Facebook.com/TowerBabblecast. Questions, comments, concerns. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode lengths. There's always some fun comments on the Facebook page about that, or the Twitter stuff, or like I said, on our Gmail account, towerbabblepodcast@gmail.com. Feel like getting those. What else? Am I missing anything? Towerbabble.ca,
That's the one.
where everything is. All the links to everything. There's a link to the Patreon page at towerbabble.ca/donate. You can find it on the homepage there. You can find our blog there. I haven't written a blog post in a long time, but it's there. What else? All of our shows are there. All the fun stuff. So we'll be back next week with Season 2, Episode 9, Blackwater. And as always, we need to thank Jeff Spicer for helping to produce the show. This week's Game of Thrones theme is a double bass solo cover played by Tessio Guitar. You can find their work on YouTube.